Hi, my name is Sestavala. I'm coming to you here live from the desk of The Outsider. Yours truly! And for episode 1, I want to give you guys all a history lesson about who I am and how I came up with the idea for this trip and what I'll be doing on the trip. So sit back, grab some popcorn, grab a friend, tell them about me, and enjoy the ride.
This is the first known photo of me. It was taken on the day that some hunters found me in the woods. Not much is known about my origins, although many suspect I was a baby Sasquatch that had been separated from his parents at birth. Now, if we fast forward a little bit, I can tell you about how it was when I was growing up. I always felt I had this connection with nature and animals, probably because I am one, and it's definitely no wonder that this guy right here was my hero. Like him, I was always fascinated with wildlife and out catching stuff all the time. I would eagerly bring them home to show my parents, who eventually got sick of it and allowed me to have a Burmese python of my very own. I named her Sheila, and she was my lady. Like everyone, we had our fights, but there were good times too. I don't think there's ever been a time where I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Should be fairly obvious, but for those of you who can't guess, I wanted to work with animals. But there was more to it than that. I didn't just want to watch my hero on TV. I wanted to be like my hero. I wanted to see the danger up around the bend and take it head on. I wanted to live the adventure. I wanted to take on the world with everything I had, and even if I got knocked down, get back up and say, "Is that all you got? 'Cause I got plenty more where that came from." I wanted to live the dream. And then I woke up and realized there was a lot of work to do for me to get there. Like anyone, I freaked out a little. But then I thought, there's one of two things I can do. I can either lay down and let the world decide what I was going to do, or I could get up and get a running start at my dreams. I chose the latter. And so I graduated from high school and moved on to bigger and better things. College, baby! Where I felt I just fit in, like I knew exactly where I was going. I was extremely happy during this period of time. I finally found a place where I felt like I belonged, where there were some people that were just like me. Well, not just like me, but similar. But it all wasn't fun games and beautiful girls. It was a lot of work and a lot of studying. And a lot of work and a lot of studying takes a lot of caffeine. Along with that, I was also a member of the Wildlife Society, in which we would go to events such as Focus on the Future and STEM to get kids interested in the sciences and therefore college. While I enjoyed all this, sometimes it felt like I just couldn't take it anymore. So I'd kick back and have some fun and thank God for summers, during which I would spend a lot of time with my best friend, Chuck Castile. And we would go on a trip that we did every year, biking the Sino Canal the entire way. All 185 miles. Impressive, I know. Yeah, we made it twice. Once during college and once during high school. But it was still a lot of fun, even if we didn't make it. But when we did make it, it was awesome. Aside from the fun, every year I had to figure out how I was going to pay the rest of my tuition and the thoroughly expensive books they expected us all to get. Luckily, I grew up in an old school family where if you can't find a job, you make one. And in a town with the 6th poorest income per capita in the U.S., this thinking was absolutely necessary. So, we created a firewood business. We called it American Grit Logging, where the wood was cut, split, stacked, and delivered. For some reason, I took to it like a fish to water, in some areas. In others, not so much. The same went for my buddy Chuck, although he wasn't as lucky. For a time, I was also a naturalist at a state park, where my main job was to take care of the birds of prey. I loved that job and every second with those big old birdies. And then one day, nearing the end of the semester, I was given a unique opportunity by a professor of mine. He offered me a trip to... When I arrived at the place I was going to stay for the next few months, I remember losing my mind and seeing the first coconut growing right outside. But I also distinctly remember the feeling of being watched, like there was danger around every corner. And yet, it was so beautiful. And surreal. Like I had only seen this stuff on TV, and here I was, seeing it in real life. It was probably one of the best experiences of my life so far. While I was down there, I was assisting the graduate students with their research on the islands along the Panama Canal. Their research consisted of small mammal trapping to see the effects of seed disperser population on vegetation growth. My assistants consisted of recording data, checking traps, and carrying lots and lots of heavy stuff. I also found out that what they said about the water was completely true. Unfortunately, I forgot.
After multiple bathroom trips and some Pepto, I felt like I could take on anything, which I would need.
Because on a rare occasion we would go into the city to cut loose a little. And I had the boogie fever, baby.
Truthfully, I was more scared to go into the city than I was the jungle. And yet, I found that even though I didn't speak the language, I could communicate perfectly. And even made some friends along the way.
When I finally arrived back home, I felt smarter, more experienced,
And a little bit sunburned.
I also remember thinking, the end is near. My final semester at college. And baby, I finished strong. All A's that semester, and I graduated cum laude. And here is where a story takes a bit of a turn. When I graduated, I felt like I could take on the world. But I quickly realized how screwed I was. I took account of everything I needed to get started, and found out I had none. I didn't have a working vehicle of my own. I had virtually no savings because I was just getting by paying for tuition and books. What I did have was a degree in an area where there were no jobs for it. But I never planned on sticking around anyway, because you're lucky if you could find a job above minimum wage. And yet I found myself doing just that, working odd jobs to save up for a vehicle and get some savings so I could move out and pursue my dream job. I worked everything from UPS, valet attendant, and construction, which was never my forte. The entire time I remember thinking, this isn't right. This isn't how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be working at my dream job, doing what I love. I'm supposed to be having fun, exploring new places, making new friends, trying new things. I'm supposed to be happy. But one thing you should know about me is ever since I was younger, I always knew what I had to do to get something accomplished. And it was no different in this case. I knew in life, nothing worth having comes easy. I knew I had to work and keep working towards my dreams. And as long as I didn't give up, I knew I'd eventually get there. That being said, it wasn't all work and no play. I did manage to have some fun, like on St. Patrick's Day, or that time me, my dad, and my brother all went golfing, where we placed bets on who would win. And I totally won, fair and square. But the time finally came when my hard work and perseverance paid off. I managed to get a vehicle and save up enough to move out. Having taken a year and a half, I was more than ready to get out of my hometown and took the first offer. And I moved down to Florida. I remember stepping into my apartment after I had unloaded all the boxes thinking, at last. Now the job I had taken wasn't my dream job, but it was pretty close. I got paid to catch and remove nuisance wildlife from homes and businesses. Now for the first few months, I was in heaven. This was like a dream come true, and it showed. In my second month there, I was ranked in the top 5 best field employees in the state with the company. It was an awesome job. I mean, I was getting paid to go out and catch all kinds of different cool animals. And even though the vast majority was like possums, raccoons, and armadillos, I was still having a good time. It was beautiful, sunny, and I was free. There was only one small problem. It was 24/7 on call, and it began to wear on me. I wasn't able to make plans, go meet new people, and make new friends. It was at this time, when the loneliness was eating away at me, that the idea for my trip was born. It started off as a far-off dream, when I was thinking about what I truly wanted out of life. Everywhere I wanted to go, things I wanted to do, and places I wanted to see. All these things were going on in my mind as I slowly began to realize what I would need to do in order to accomplish them. The first thing I realized was I couldn't stay. And after fighting for a year and a half right after I graduated to chase my dreams, this thought was tearing me apart. Another thought was that I actually wasn't really free. See, I had a very large weight on my back. That was student loans. These were the things I knew I needed to do and take care of. And so I gave my 2 weeks notice and left the job I fought so hard for. My parents and my best friend came down to help me move back, and I remember that being the most fun I had in a good while, because I actually had time to do stuff and enjoy it. And the fact that I got to see my family and friends again, I was happy, more so than I had been in a while. But nothing could compare to when I finally got home and got to see my best friend in the world again. And while I was happy seeing my best bud, my family, and my friends again, I was also kind of lost. I felt like I'd failed, and I really didn't know what direction to take. For a time I even considered going back to school, and went so far as to take the entry exams and pass them. But when I saw how much graduate school would add to the debt that I already had, I thought better of it, and the idea for my trip formed a little bit more. Because in order to be free, I knew I had to be debt-free. But the problem was I hadn't got a job yet, and didn't really feel like getting another minimum wage one. I didn't want to give up another year and a half of my life just so I could pursue my dream job, and then start paying off my student loans. And so I was stuck. I had no idea what to do, and during this period of time I was pretty depressed. Until the holidays rolled around. I mean, who can be depressed during the holidays? It was right after this that I landed a job working construction for a subcontractor who worked for the company my dad worked for. The crew consisted of me, my brother, and a few friends. And my dad would request us because he knew we were hard workers. So it was a pretty sweet deal and decent pay. And it was out of Cumberland, which kind of goes hand in hand. But the thing was, I've never liked construction. I know in my heart it's not what I'm meant to do. And when you're doing something you don't want to do, all you can think about is getting away. Which no doubt is what fully realized the plans for my trip. I'd work like a madman and pay off my student loans. And as a reward for all my hard work, I'd backpack across America. This was the simple idea that I had that started it. But it just kept evolving. It went from backpacking across America to backpacking all 50 states. It went from just visiting each state to taking in everything the state has to offer. Its history, its culture. So I needed to spend more time in each state. Around 30 days. And then I realized there was no way I couldn't record all these adventures, and the idea for the documentary is born. And then I got to thinking about all the stuff I haven't done yet that I've always wanted to do. And with me visiting all 50 states, I thought, hey, why not make a list of 50 things I've always wanted to do and do one in each state? Believe it or not, these are just the basics of the trip. I've added so much more over time. And if you want to know what they are, you're going to have to follow me on my journey. Anyways, a year passed, and I was a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and a little bit hairier. And at the cost of my sanity, I managed to pay off 2 of my student loans and cut the last one in half. My original goal was to pay them all off in 1 year, but looking back, this was still pretty darn good. And after working through another winter, 5 months and 28 days, I finally did it. I paid off my last student loan and became 100% debt-free. I spent the rest of the year planning and preparing, and on January 2nd, 2016, I headed out and began living the dream.
To the east, the road beneath my feet. To the west, well I haven't got there yet. And to the north, never to be caught. To the south, my time is running out.